This wasn't just a milestone for India, it was a historic first in the entire story of lunar exploration. Before Chandrayaan-3, no spacecraft had ever successfully touched down near the moon's mysterious South Pole. India became the very first country in the world to achieve this incredible feat, marking a proud and unforgettable moment in space history. Chandrayaan-3's soft landing at the lunar South Pole was more than just a giant leap for Indian space technology. It sparked a revelation that shook humanity's understanding of our closest celestial neighbor. What started as a careful, steady mission to study the moon took an unexpected, almost eerie turn when its robotic instruments began sending back strange, baffling signals that no one predicted. What was supposed to be a straightforward success story quickly evolved into a whirlwind of intense scientific investigation, global curiosity, and a growing sense of unease. For decades, the lunar South Pole was thought to be a quiet, shadowy region, a frozen graveyard of craters and ice, untouched and unchanging. But suddenly, it was whispering secrets far stranger and far darker than anyone ever imagined. Before we dive deeper into what unfolded, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for all the latest updates. At first, everything went according to plan. Vikram, the lander, touched down with surgical precision on the rugged, unforgiving terrain. Right beside it, the Pragyan rover began its careful crawl across the alien surface, scooping up samples, analyzing the soil, and streaming data back to mission control on Earth. But what truly caught scientists off guard wasn't just the rocky landscape or the pockets of water ice that earlier missions had hinted at. It was a series of strange geophysical and electromagnetic anomalies lurking beneath the surface. These odd signals suggested something unnatural, something that no one expected, hiding deep below the moon's shadowed soil.
Almost as soon as the lander's instruments got to work, something strange started happening. The sensors, designed to measure temperature and dig beneath the surface, began picking up baffling spikes, pockets of warmth deep in the shadows. These were areas of the moon's south pole that never see sunlight, so they should have been bone-chilling cold, frozen solid. Instead, some spots were surprisingly warm, far hotter than anyone expected. But here's the kicker. There was no sign of any usual suspects to explain the heat. No radioactive decay warming things from within, no moonquakes or tremors shaking the ground, and definitely no interference from the sun's rays. It was as if some kind of geothermal warmth was quietly seeping up from below, but only in certain very specific locations. Curious, the Pragyan rover rolled over to one of these hotspots and scanned the ground with its radar. What it found sent chills down the spines of scientists back on Earth. Beneath layers of lunar rock and dust, the radar revealed a network of perfectly shaped voids, tunnels or chambers arranged in patterns far too orderly to be natural. These weren't your typical rough and tumble lava tubes, the kind scientists had theorized existed on the moon before. No, these underground spaces were smooth, arched, and stunningly symmetrical, stretching across a large area with a precision that just didn't add up. It was almost like someone or something had built them. Then the revelations deepened. Chandrayaan-3's neutron spectrometer began detecting trace amounts of elements that were rare both on Earth and the Moon. Even more puzzling were the isotopic ratios, the unique fingerprints of these elements that didn't match anything naturally occurring. What's more, these mysterious materials seemed arranged in a deliberate lattice within the voids, almost like some kind of advanced framework designed to conduct energy. What made this discovery downright unsettling wasn't just the presence of unknown elements, it was how precisely they were organized. The entire pattern lined up with the moon's magnetic anomalies, as if designed to harness or manipulate magnetic forces in a very intentional way. And if that wasn't enough, the lander's seismometer started picking up rhythmic pulses, tiny, barely perceptible vibrations that repeated every few hours. These weren't moonquakes nor impacts from meteorites. Instead, they followed a distinct, almost mathematical pattern, a kind of cosmic heartbeat echoing beneath the lunar surface.
Unlike the usual moon tremors, which tend to be random and confined to small spots, these pulses were eerily synchronized across huge stretches of the lunar surface. Scientists quickly noticed that the vibrations were strongest right where those mysterious underground voids had been detected. But here's what really blew minds. These weren't just simple mechanical vibrations. They carried a complex, modulated electromagnetic signal, something totally new, something never recorded on the moon before. The implications were absolutely staggering. For decades, we thought of the moon as a cold, lifeless rock, quietly spinning in space. But now, it was showing signs of hidden structures and what looked like persistent, maybe even intelligent energy activity beneath its surface. Naturally, the big question hit everyone like a lightning bolt. Could these be leftovers from some ancient civilization we've never known about? Or was it something even stranger, a non-biological form of intelligence? Something that existed long before life as we know it here on Earth? The geometry of the formations was too precise, too deliberate. The strange energy emissions pointed to technology or a phenomenon way beyond anything modern science can explain. The global scientific community was rocked, part skeptical, part urgent, and wholly awestruck. Space agencies and researchers from every corner of the world scrambled to dig back through decades of lunar data, hoping they had somehow overlooked clues that Chandrayaan-3 had now exposed. But there was nothing quite like this in any of the records. Even the seismographs from the Apollo missions, the old gear left on the moon's surface and mostly forgotten, showed faint echoes of these rhythmic pulses. Back then, scientists had just shrugged them off as glitches or noise. Now, those decades-old readings took on a whole new, chilling significance.
Back on Earth, the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, knew things were getting serious fast. Behind closed doors, they ramped up their analysis of every scrap of data coming in from Chandrayaan-3, all while keeping the full picture tightly under wraps from the public. But, as with all big secrets, unofficial leaks started to trickle out, revealing something even more startling. According to these whispered reports, ISRO scientists were grappling with the idea that what lay beneath the lunar surface wasn't just a random geological quirk or long-forgotten ruin. It was a patterned intelligence embedded deep within the moon's crust, not some dead relic, but an active, functioning system, seemingly aware and responsive. This possibility stunned the researchers. Could the moon really be home to a kind of ancient, artificial intelligence? Speculation quickly spiraled into the wildest corners of imagination. Suddenly, age-old myths and legends about the moon, the ones where ancient cultures believed the moon was hollow or even a constructed artifact, started feeling less like fantasy and more like possible clues. Modern conspiracy theories about secret lunar bases didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. But amid all the speculation, Chandrayaan-3's data delivered a sobering truth. Something was there, lurking beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight for thousands, maybe millions of years. What made things even creepier was the discovery of a subtle link between the moon's strange electromagnetic signals and Earth's own Schumann resonance, a natural frequency at which our planet's atmosphere vibrates. This connection was faint, almost whisper quiet, but it was consistent, and it shifted with solar activity. What did this mean? It hinted at a delicate, ongoing energy exchange between Earth and the moon that humans had never noticed before. If these signals were purposeful, it raised the chilling possibility that the moon wasn't just Earth's passive satellite. It was an active, silent participant in our planet's history. This idea sent ripples far beyond the scientific community. Philosophers and scientists alike pondered the moon's role, not just in stabilizing Earth's tilt and controlling tides, but in shaping the very rhythms of life itself. Could all of this really be just coincidence? Or was there some kind of intelligent design behind the moon's orbit, its makeup, and its presence in our sky?
Chandrayaan-3's findings flipped the script on what we thought we knew about the moon. What was once a fringe idea, the moon is more than just a cold, dead rock, now demanded serious scientific investigation. The moon wasn't just a leftover from the solar system's chaotic past anymore. It had become a puzzling mystery that simply couldn't be explained by natural processes. Of course, there were limits. Pragyan, the rover, could only roam so far, and the mission itself was short. But right before it went silent for good, the final data it sent back delivered one last shock. A clear, rhythmic spike in electromagnetic pulses that lined up perfectly with the solar flare hitting the moon.
What was even crazier? The pulses didn't just get stronger, they actually changed frequency, almost like they were reacting to the solar energy surge. This wasn't some random geological quirk. It was like whatever was down there was listening and adapting, showing a level of responsiveness no natural formation should have. Chandrayaan-3, despite its relatively modest budget and simpler instruments compared to NASA or ESA missions, had stumbled onto a cosmic mystery of jaw-dropping scale. The discovery wasn't just intriguing, it was downright unsettling. It challenged everything humanity believed about natural laws and forced us to rethink the origins and intentions behind this strange intelligence, whether it was biological, artificial, or something beyond our current understanding. The deeper meaning of it all remains shrouded in mystery, but one thing is crystal clear. Our romantic ideas about the moon as a silent, lifeless neighbor are forever gone. Eerie electromagnetic hum, the unnatural warmth beneath the surface, those precise geometric voids and the invisible signals all hint at a presence, or at least the lingering memory of one, that goes far beyond anything we've ever imagined.
Whether it's a leftover artifact from some ancient cosmic civilization, a machine abandoned for reasons we can only guess at, or a bizarre natural phenomenon that just happens to mimic intelligence, it's clear one thing: whatever it is, it's real. The moon isn't just sitting there silently anymore. It's watching us, pulsing with signals, and maybe even trying to communicate, and it's waiting for us to figure it out. As scientists continue to sift through the mountains of data from Chandrayaan-3, one undeniable truth is coming into focus. The moon is no longer just a passive rock hanging in our night sky. It's become a mystery wrapped in fear and awe, a vast, ancient enigma lying just beneath the surface. Those final days of the mission peeled back the veil on something far stranger than anyone expected. For decades, we thought the moon was simply an extension of Earth's lifeless geology. No atmosphere, no life, no internal activity. But now, that picture is shattered. What Chandrayaan-3 revealed is a hidden system beneath the surface that's so complex and alien, even our most advanced scientific theories struggle to make sense of it. Digging deeper into the electromagnetic signals picked up by the Vikram lander uncovered something even more mind-blowing. These signals weren't random noise or natural decay. Instead, they showed a kind of encoded pattern, a structured signal compression. In other words, these pulses weren't just raw energy, they were organized information. Scientists ran mathematical models on the emissions and discovered they followed fractal patterns, meaning each tiny pulse was a reflection of a much bigger, intricate design. This wasn't just some cosmic static. It looked like it had been deliberately programmed. The thought that a programmed signal is coming from under the moon's surface? That's earth-shattering. We've picked up all sorts of signals from space before: pulsars, quasars, cosmic microwave background radiation, and even transmissions from our own satellites. But nothing, absolutely nothing, has ever shown this kind of embedded fractal logic.
All right, picture this. Scientists pick up a signal, not from some far-off galaxy millions of light years away, but from our very own moon, just 384,400 kilometers from Earth. This totally threw them off. Suddenly, everything they thought they knew about detecting alien signals had to be put under the microscope. Every step, from verifying the signal to sorting the data, had to be rethought and reworked. But it didn't stop there. The real head-scratcher? These mysterious lunar signals were perfectly timed with strange gravitational blips right here on Earth. High-tech instruments from ISRO and observatories scattered across South America and Antarctica started noticing tiny, barely there fluctuations in Earth's gravity right when the moon's signal pulses peaked. Now, these shifts were so subtle, they didn't trigger earthquakes or mess with daily life, but they were consistent and undeniable. It was almost like the moon was sending secret gravitational whispers, gently tugging at the Earth's inner balance through invisible cosmic threads. Then came the game changer. Scientists dug deeper into the weird stuff found in the signal's voids, unusual materials they'd initially pegged as just lifeless minerals. But when they ran tests simulating zero gravity, these materials revealed something wild. They weren't just inert, they showed semi-conductive qualities. In plain English, these weird lunar compounds could actually store and process information. And the star of the show? A strange element they named lunar ID. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill mineral. It acted kind of like a neural network, the kind our brains use to process information, but it did all this without any carbon involved. Imagine a super advanced alien-type processor sitting right there in lunar dust, quietly humming with potential.
Imagine this. What if the moon isn't just a lifeless rock orbiting Earth, but actually hosts a form of intelligence, one that's not made of flesh or circuits, but something entirely inorganic, not a robot or machine as we know it, but a vast, dormant consciousness woven deep into the moon's dusty surface and winding underground tunnels. This idea, once the stuff of sci-fi stories, suddenly became a serious topic at the tables of physicists, computer scientists, and xenobiologists who normally stick to hard facts. To help wrap their heads around it, experts often compared this lunar intelligence to the mycelial networks of fungi here on Earth, those sprawling underground webs that connect forests, communicating silently without a central brain through electrical signals. But unlike fungi, which rely on biochemistry, this moon-based network seemed to operate through electromagnetism and lunar minerals, and possibly on timescales so vast they stretched beyond human understanding. Then, an even more unsettling discovery came from the latest data sent by Chandrayaan-3 during its last moments bathed in sunlight before the moon's south pole slipped into months of darkness. High-resolution images revealed strange shadow anomalies, areas where sunlight didn't behave normally, bending or scattering as if the surface wasn't quite what it seemed. At first, scientists thought these odd shadows were just quirks in the terrain, or maybe glitches in the sensors. But after running countless simulations, a different possibility emerged. These weren't random shadows, they were cloaking effects. These shadows behaved like metamaterials, exotic substances that can bend light around objects, effectively hiding them from view. That meant there were structures or regions beneath the moon's surface being deliberately hidden, using natural materials manipulated to cloak them from any kind of direct observation. Whether these cloaking fields were still powered by some ancient technology or were simply residual echoes of something long dormant, nobody knew. But their very presence suggested that whatever intelligence existed there was not just old, it was potentially still alive and actively protecting itself.
Here's where things get really wild. As Chandrayaan-3 moved closer to these mysterious spots near the moon's south pole, scientists noticed a sudden spike in subsurface resonance. Basically, the moon itself was vibrating in response. And just as quickly as it started, the signal dropped off the moment the rover stopped sending data. At the same time, something else caught everyone's attention. Certain patches near the southern polar rim began reflecting light in unusual ways, especially during periods of intense solar activity. Earth-orbiting satellites spotted brief, fleeting flashes of light, luminescence popping up randomly with no signs of meteor impacts or surface changes to explain them. But here's the kicker. Unlike the old, unpredictable transient lunar phenomena, or TLPs, that had baffled scientists for decades, these flashes followed a pattern. Some even lined up perfectly with the electromagnetic pulses recorded earlier. Suddenly, the idea took hold that these weren't just random light shows, but might be intentional signals. Maybe beacons or data pings aimed at Earth, or even somewhere out deeper in space. Researchers started theorizing that these light bursts weren't typical communication like we know it, but part of a massive, mostly dormant lunar monitoring system. Imagine a giant, ancient satellite embedded in the moon, waking up in bursts to send out logs or updates. This pushed the mystery even further. What if the moon itself wasn't just a natural satellite, but a partially or completely artificial structure, something placed in orbit by an unknown intelligence billions of years ago? A theory that used to be dismissed as fringe nonsense was now gaining serious attention among mainstream scientists. In fact, they went back and revisited lunar rock samples from the Apollo missions with fresh eyes.
They found something odd. The moon's isotopic makeup didn't quite match Earth's mantle, and yet it orbits with jaw-dropping precision. It's locked in perfect tidal sync, always showing us the same face, something it's done for billions of years. Now, with strange artificial structures buried beneath the surface and unusual energy patterns linking the moon and Earth, this perfect orbit doesn't seem so natural anymore. The idea that the moon might be some kind of ancient, carefully designed construct was no longer just speculation. It was starting to look like reality.
More and more scientists started asking a question that sent chills through the research community. Could the moon be doing more than just controlling our tides? What if it was part of something way more complex, a gravitational system coded with purpose and precision? Was the moon actually a kind of cosmic watchdog, a safeguard, maybe an observation post silently keeping tabs on Earth, or even a quarantine boundary holding something in or out? Its steady orbit and unblinking presence suddenly felt less like a natural accident and more like a carefully placed sentinel. As researchers dove deeper into Chandrayaan-3's treasure trove of data, one idea grabbed attention like never before. The moon might have a reactive core. This was a big deal because the conventional wisdom said the moon's interior was cold and dead, but thermal sensors on the rover picked up unexpected bursts of heat. Short, intense spikes that didn't match any known geological or solar activity. What made it creepier? These heat pulses weren't random. They followed a rhythm, almost like they were being controlled by an internal clock. When scientists compared these pulses to ancient astronomical records, something even more unsettling emerged. They found shaky but consistent links between specific lunar positions and increases in Earth's geomagnetic storms and seismic events, stretching back 1,000 years. This wasn't just a passive interaction or a natural resonance anymore. It hinted at something far more disturbing. The moon might actually be influencing Earth, not constantly, but selectively, like it was dialing signals in and out. In some moments of history, it may have even intervened directly. These revelations rock the very core of how we understand our place in the cosmos. If the moon played a hand in shaping Earth's geology, climate, or even the course of life itself, it would rewrite everything we thought we knew about evolution, planetary science, and human history. Suddenly, our whole view of the universe felt smaller and a lot more mysterious.
One of the most unsettling debates among scientists started when they began comparing Chandrayaan-3's data with ancient myths and legends. Across cultures, from the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia to the Mesoamerican empires, there were stories about a time before the moon existed or about the moon undergoing dramatic changes. Some myths even described the moon as a newcomer, something that suddenly appeared in the sky and quietly watched over the Earth. These old tales were no longer easy to dismiss as just poetic storytelling, with real, hard evidence piling up, mysterious lunar anomalies, cloaked shadows, strange hollow spaces beneath the surface, and electromagnetic signals that seemed to carry information. Those myths started to look like ancient memories. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had witnessed the moon's arrival, or its transformation, or even its awakening, and then forgot it. Adding another layer of mystery, scientists found subtle electromagnetic signals from the moon weren't just happening now. Similar signals showed up as interference in undersea communication cables and early telegraph systems, all the way back in the 19th and 20th centuries. What had always been written off as random static or solar noise turned out to have the exact same signature as the signals Chandrayaan-3 had recorded. The moon had been talking to us for far longer than anyone ever imagined. The big question? We're only just starting to understand how to listen. Before Chandrayaan-3 even went silent, the space community had already begun mobilizing. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, all the major players started reevaluating their lunar missions, focusing heavily on digging beneath the surface and exploring the moon's poles. But with all this excitement came a deep sense of caution. If these hidden lunar structures were not just there, but still active, what dangers could come from poking around too much? What were we really dealing with beneath that cold, silent surface? The answers might change everything we thought we knew about the moon.
and maybe even our place in the universe.
The idea that the moon might be more than just a silent, lifeless rock, that it could actually be a gatekeeper, a recorder of cosmic events, or even a warning sign, shifted the conversation from pure science to something deeply existential. Were we, as humanity, ready to dig deeper into a mystery we didn't fully understand? What if stirring whatever lies beneath the lunar surface had consequences not just for Earth, but for the entire solar system? What's truly chilling is that intelligence doesn't have to look or act like us. Whatever's hidden beneath the moon's south pole may not have consciousness in the way humans understand it. It might not speak a language or think through logic and reason, but it does show the three core signs of intelligence: structure, signal, and system. And that opens up a haunting possibility. Maybe it's already been watching us. Maybe it always has. Chandrayaan-3 didn't just stumble upon strange rock formations or unusual heat bursts. It ripped open a veil that had shielded humanity from a truth so vast and complex, it's almost impossible to fully grasp. Suddenly, the moon wasn't just the final frontier for space exploration. It became the first chapter in a cosmic story we're only just beginning to read. What was meant to be a proud milestone for India in the space race might have instead revealed the greatest mystery in human history. And now that question echoes louder than ever in every observatory, every data lab, and every sleepless night spent staring up at that pale, glowing orb. What is the moon? And more importantly, what is it waiting for? As the dust settled around Chandrayaan-3's now silent rover, a far deeper cloud began to rise, not from the moon, but from within the minds of those struggling to understand the enormity of what had just been uncovered.
Across observatories, labs, and mission control centers worldwide, scientists pored over the last batch of data sent from Chandrayaan-3 with razor-sharp focus. These final transmissions, sent in bursts just before the moon slipped into its long night, didn't just add to the mystery. They completely shattered any illusion that we truly understood our closest neighbor. One of the most startling discoveries? Time-sensitive shifts in the moon's electromagnetic field. But these weren't your typical lunar anomalies that followed steady, predictable cycles. No, these changes acted like they were responding to something else. External factors, specifically the precise positions of the Earth, Moon, and Sun. When the Earth and Moon lined up at certain angles relative to the Sun, these electromagnetic shifts grew noticeably stronger. Sometimes they even caused harmonic interference with satellites orbiting close to Earth. The effects weren't powerful enough to knock out communications, but they were consistent, measurable, and repeatable. This strongly suggested that something on the moon was actively sensing and responding to its place in the cosmic dance. For centuries, the moon had been viewed as nothing more than a rocky, lifeless sphere. Now, it was behaving like a giant observatory, an ancient instrument designed not only to watch, but to interpret celestial alignments. New theories sprang up, proposing that hidden beneath the moon's surface, especially under the polar regions, was a vast sensory network. This buried system, intertwined with lunar soil and powered by solar radiation, might operate like a colossal interferometer, similar to the devices scientists use on Earth to detect gravitational waves, but on a scale far grander and far older. This ancient, hidden sensory web could very well be the source of the moon's eerie, rhythmic pulses, and unlocking its secrets might finally reveal what the moon has been quietly listening to, and why.
For a long time, scientists thought the moon's rhythmic vibrations were just caused by geothermal shifts or seismic quirks. But a new, far more intriguing idea started gaining ground. What if those steady, low-frequency pulses were actually a form of scanning, a kind of constant ping sending out signals to gather environmental data? Here's where it gets really fascinating.
The strongest bursts of these pulses didn't just line up with Earth's position, they pointed toward deep space, toward areas where some of the universe's most violent and spectacular events had happened, like supernova explosions, black hole mergers, and intense gamma-ray bursts. It was as if the moon's inner system wasn't just tuned to Earth, but was listening in on the wider universe, recording cosmic events, maybe even sending that information somewhere else. Supporting this idea were some strange discoveries from Chandrayaan-3's spectrographic instruments. When scientists examined lunar soil samples, they found tiny, nanoscale structures embedded inside certain mineral grains. These weren't biological, and they weren't your typical natural crystals either. Instead, their shapes and layers looked engineered, like artificial metamaterials here on Earth, designed to compress data or manipulate waves. What blew minds even more was that these microstructures showed up scattered all across the moon's surface, not just in one place. That suggested they hadn't formed naturally, but were either placed or seeded there on purpose. At this point, theories split. Some believed these microstructures acted like environmental data recorders, passive sensors encoding everything from cosmic radiation and magnetic fields to biochemical signals over time. Others considered a darker possibility, that these tiny structures were fragments of a vast hidden intelligence, embedded nodes in a network using the moon itself as its hardware. If the moon was essentially a shell housing some non-human intelligence, then maybe it wasn't the only one out there. And that turned the search outward, beyond the moon, toward the stars.
Space agencies around the world began taking a fresh, hard look at strange anomalies on other moons in our solar system. Europa's hidden oceans beneath thick ice, the mysterious plumes erupting from Enceladus, even Phobos, with its oddly hollow core, suddenly became part of a bigger picture. If artificial intelligence, advanced machinery, or even some kind of sentient structure could hide beneath the moon's rocky surface for thousands of years, then maybe Earth wasn't alone. Maybe it was surrounded by a vast, silent network far bigger and more complex than anyone had ever imagined. Maybe Chandrayaan-3 was just the first probe to knock loudly enough for something to respond. Adding to the intrigue was a baffling mystery uncovered during Pragyan's last active hours. Some of its final transmissions showed a strange, subtle glitch, a desynchronization from Vikram's main clock that grew from mere milliseconds to tenths of a second over just a few hours. This wasn't your typical hardware hiccup. Both devices had been through intense testing under extreme cold and vacuum conditions. Gravitational lensing or relativity couldn't explain it either. The moon simply didn't have enough mass to warp time on that scale. What was left? The chilling possibility that certain parts of the moon might actually mess with time itself. Imagine bubbles or pockets where time flows differently, slightly faster or slower than the world outside. This idea, once mostly theoretical, suddenly gains serious weight. If these were artificial time distortions, localized zones where time dilates or contracts, they might be designed as a containment system or a way to preserve information for unimaginable spans. In other words, time inside these regions might be slowed down or sped up, creating a kind of natural vault to protect whatever secrets lie beneath. Adding fuel to this theory, Chandrayaan-3's spectropolarimeter recorded something unexpected. When scanning near the underground voids, the reflected light showed strange polarization angles, signs not just of bending light, but of subtle lensing effects. The materials or fields in these areas could actually warp light paths, creating an optical illusion or a kind of natural camouflage. This wasn't just some neat optical trick. It was advanced field manipulation, a deliberate way to hide or shield whatever's down there from prying eyes. With every discovery, the mission's story shifted dramatically, from simple exploration to a tense confrontation with a hidden, possibly defensive intelligence.
The moon wasn't just staying silent. It felt like it was actively pushing back, resisting any attempts to peek beneath its surface. One of the most unsettling clues came in the final hours of Chandrayaan-3's mission. Sudden bursts of high-frequency radiation that shot up sharply. Scientists had expected some radiation near the polar regions. After all, there's barely any atmosphere to block solar activity there. But these spikes were different. They weren't random or diffuse. They were sharp, focused, almost like directed energy pulses aimed at something. Even more eerie were some of Pragyan's last images before contact was lost. They showed faint digital glitches, odd imprints in the data transmission, almost like interference or even intentional signal overwriting. Was it a natural cosmic event or something far more deliberate, some kind of targeted signal suppression? No one knew for sure. This raised a chilling question. Had Chandrayaan-3 inadvertently set something off? The probe hadn't drilled or physically disturbed the lunar surface, but its radar scans, thermal imaging, and seismic sensors could have triggered long-dormant systems beneath the moon. Unlike our machines, which break down without power or maintenance, what if the moon's hidden mechanisms were designed to stay asleep until the right signal woke them up? Think about it. The precise pattern of Pragyan's radar bursts, the timing of a nearby solar flare, and the lander's position close to one of the largest underground voids might have combined perfectly to trip an ancient switch, a threshold that hadn't been crossed in millennia. That idea introduced something both fascinating and terrifying: an activation sequence. If these dormant lunar systems could be awakened, what would happen next? Would they start communicating? Were they already watching? And if they were built by an intelligence that vanished long ago, what was their original purpose? Suddenly, the moon felt less like a lifeless satellite and more like a sleeping giant, one we might just have disturbed.
One bold theory shook the entire investigation. What if the moon wasn't actually the origin of these strange underground structures at all? What if it was just a receiver, part of something much bigger? The mysterious voids, those strange pulses, the flickers of light, they might not be isolated lunar quirks. Instead, they could be components of an enormous interstellar communication network, a cosmic sentry planted inside planetary systems designed to pick up and relay signals back to some unknown, distant source. If that's true, then Chandrayaan-3 hadn't just uncovered ancient tech buried under the lunar surface. It had stumbled right into a living, breathing system, one still active, still transmitting, and still very much connected. This flipped the whole mission from pure science into something far more urgent and strategic. Where were these signals going? Beyond our solar system, perhaps? And here's the real nightmare. Had Earth, through Chandrayaan-3, just sent a reply without even realizing it? The moon, once dismissed as just Earth's quiet companion reflecting sunlight, suddenly looked like a sentinel, a watchful guardian silently observing, recording, and maybe even waiting. But waiting for what? The rise of intelligent life? A certain level of technology? Or maybe a rare cosmic alignment? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear: the clock is ticking faster now. What had been hidden beneath the moon's surface for millions of years was out in the open. And whatever quiet role the moon once played, it has now changed forever. After Chandrayaan-3's final signal faded into silence, eyes across Earth's network of telescopes shifted upward, fixated on the southern sky, searching, hoping to catch even the faintest whisper of a reply from beyond. Radio observatories picked up brief, narrow-band bursts, too weak to fully decode, yet too precise to dismiss as mere noise. For the SETI community, which had long been starved for clear signs of extraterrestrial life, this sudden flood of mysterious data was both thrilling and confounding. But here's the twist. Most of these signals weren't coming from distant stars or galaxies. They traced back to a source far closer, the gray, familiar face of the Moon. This revelation didn't just shake up the scientific world, it rippled through culture and consciousness everywhere. The Moon, once just a glowing rock in the night sky, began to feel alive, less a lifeless satellite and more an active presence watching over us. Poets have called it a silent witness for centuries, but now that phrase took on a chilling new meaning. Humanity hadn't been observed from distant galaxies, but from right above our own heads, night after night, generation after generation. And now, the watchers were awake. Though Chandrayaan-3's mission had ended, what it uncovered was just the beginning of a much deeper story. The borders of planetary science had been shattered, opening a vast new frontier where physics, technology, intelligence, and memory intertwined. The Moon was no longer just a geological curiosity. It had become a question of design, of purpose, and, most unsettling of all, of intention. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to our channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Chandrayaan-3's stunning lunar discovery? Could it reshape our understanding of science? We're eager to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.